This whole show took me about 3.5 years. These drawings were not about showing, and they weren't about for other people or for selling or whatever. These drawings are about coming here to the studio at 6 o'clock in the morning and spending a couple of hours in this quiet meditation where there is just me and my pencils and this space, just taking the time, you know, I mean, allowing the grace of each piece to reveal itself, because it takes time, and that's kind of why I'm calling my show It Just Takes Time, because that's what it's about. It just takes time. And this is my sky Kleenex, and the reason why I like it is because there's a lot of different grades on it. Just by using these shreds, I get different textures, right? Because there's nothing harder to achieve than randomness. And all of a sudden that Kleenex starts to give me all of this stuff, because you really can't control Kleenex. Nature is all about chaos and randomness. Humans are all about organizing, making things straight. It's because of the way our brains work, and how do we counterbalance that? And of course, the way that I counterbalance these things is by finding ways to put randomness into my work, which it's not easy, you know, because as I work, things start to get patterns again, and then I go, no, I'm starting to get patterned again. And because even as I'm working, I'll just take my thumb and I'll just smear it. You know, I mean, and it's kind of like a fine line between smearing it or else I'll take a little bit of an eraser and I'll just poke it, you know, and the poking sort of gives me this nice rhythm and pattern and movement that I can't do because I'm a human being, but the eraser can do, because it's kind of like a And these, I like these erasers because, again, I have a collection of them. Some are dirty, some are clean, some are new, some are square, and because they take all these random shapes on them, as soon as you poke it, you have a random shape. It's like, you know. And then that shape, then, I mean, look at this. See that? I mean, like, those could be those little woodpecker holes. I mean, like, boom, it's just there. And it's like, I think the thing that inspires me most of all, I mean, thinking of all the things that inspire me, like walking out in the forest and seeing trees, or being out in the alpine and seeing mountains and that kind of stuff. But honestly, the thing that inspires me the most is a blank piece of paper. In that, when I start with a blank piece of paper, it's nothing. It's just a piece of paper. And when I'm done, it's alive. It's a journey. And each one of them is like magic. I mean, it just kind of goes, boom. One minute it's a blank piece of paper, and the next minute, and I don't feel like it's me. It's this thing that happens between the pencil and the paper, and it just, all of a sudden, this thing that is sort of like non-kinetic, dead, flat surface becomes alive. And isn't that amazing? It's just incredible. I mean, that was a blank piece of paper like 2 minutes ago, and look at it now. And it's like, and now this thing that I've done all these scribbles on can occupy my time for the next 3 months. And you see, this stuff here is the shavings from my pencils. And the nice thing is because there's 2B, 4B, and 6B in here, and a little bit of wood, you don't know what you're going to get, and so you get randomness. Clouds and water are about movement, and the way you get them to look real is you don't think of a static form within the drawing. You think about motion, and so as I work the clouds, I'm thinking these things are moving. Okay, and so make them moving. And so the sky probably in a drawing will take me a couple weeks, you know, and just, the poor finger gets pretty worn out. But I'll use the eraser a little bit and do some blah-blah-blahs and some pushes and some pulls and that kind of stuff. And then I'll take a pencil and I'll finally pull out some of the detail here and there. if I want to. Then what I do, once I have this basic movement, once I start to have this sense of these lines and these forms, then I'll go back and I'll start to work these areas in here, these background areas, and working the background areas is actually what gives the dimension of the drawing, because I'll work this in 6B, and I'll work this in 4B, and I'll work this in 2B, and just the change of the pencil pulls the drawing out. And as soon as it gets to this stage, I start to get really excited. You know, I mean, because I can start to see all these little things happening, and then the challenge is, in terms of, I make all these problems when I lay it out at first. It's like, how am I going to lay a trail in here? Is there going to be a trail? Is the trail going to go this way? Is the trail going to go this way? Is it, and resolving all of these things. You know, it's like, how do I get this thing to talk to me? And of course, as it talks to me, then the end result is that it's going to talk to anybody. I work towards that sense of looking down, looking across, and looking up, which means that the actual classical perspective doesn't exist. Instead, you have this curve that occurs. It's a natural flowing curve that, and each object in the drawing has to move, in the sense that the ones we look down on are kind of round, and the ones that we look across on are kind of flat. They're kind of like, whoop, whoop. And then if we're looking up, we see this, or if we're looking down, we see that. And so when we start to become aware of those visual cues, then all of a sudden it becomes this beautiful language, in terms of I can take you here, I can push you there, and I use that to create these visual journeys. The subject matter is completely immaterial. That's why I do trees and trails, because I mean, kind of like, everybody knows trees and trails, right? It doesn't really matter. I could be using toothpicks and salt and pepper shakers. It really wouldn't matter. You know, that's not the point. The point is in terms of the language, and saying, oh, look, this is going to give you a movement of depth, or this is going to give you a sense of vertigo and instability. Like in this painting here, okay, I've spent a lot of time trying to create that sense of when you approach a lake, and you feel pulled towards it, even though the trail is pulling you away. And so there is a strong sense of vertigo in this piece. I mean, it's like, wow, like that, and stuff like that. And again, I'm using visual cues. I'm pushing and pulling, and I'm sort of giving you a visual puzzle. Some drawings take a long time, and not always in that I'm physically sitting there drawing. Part of it is the thinking. You know, sometimes I have to let a drawing sit for a little bit, so I might come and I might not actually draw for a day or two. I might putter around in my studio, you know, cut some mats, do other things, occasionally even clean, and that sort of thing, But while I'm doing that, I'm in the presence of the drawing, and I'm thinking about it, and then all of a sudden I'll go, okay, that's what needs to happen, and sort of thing. And the stupid ferns took me like more than a month, because the movement of the ferns was complete, had to be done completely in the negative. So that meant rather than drawing the fern, I had to draw around it. You know, so I had to compose the whole drawing around the ferns, and so it's not like you just scribble all the way around the ferns, because there's all kinds of ebbs and flows and movements that are happening behind the ferns. So I had to plan everything that was going to move through the drawing around these ferns, and that's why I only ever did one, because it was so complicated. I actually have difficulty signing my pieces. You'll notice I sign them really small, because I think in a lot of ways that I'm just this conduit, this vessel where this happens, right? And I speak of my times, and it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone. It belongs to the person who purchases it. I mean, it's like I just happen to be the person who made it. It's just sort of like it's part of the world. I mean, once it's done, for me, it's used paper. Go, go, you know.